Chumley after closing a Star Wars deal. In the world of reality television, few shows have captured the public's imagination quite like Pawn Stars. The History Channel series, which follows the daily operations of the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, has become a cultural phenomenon. At the heart of the show are its colorful cast of characters, most notably Rick Harrison, the sharp-talking owner and negotiator. His son Corey Harrison, known as Big Hoss. Austin Chumley Russell, the often bumbling but lovable employee. And the older Richard Harrison, affectionately dubbed the Old Man. Together, they navigate the unpredictable world of buying and selling rare and unusual items. While the show is known for its educational tidbits about history, pop culture, and collectibles, it's also famous for the interpersonal dynamics between the main cast members. Tensions occasionally rise, especially during high-stakes negotiations or when opinions clash over pricing and authenticity. One such moment recently made headlines when Chumley publicly called Rick Harrison cheap, following a major deal involving a valuable Star Wars collectible. This article delves into the details of that incident, exploring the context of the negotiation, the reactions from both parties, and the broader implications for their working relationship and the show itself. The Star Wars item that sparked the debate. The episode in question revolved around a unique and highly sought-after Star Wars collectible brought into the pawn shop by a customer hoping to make a significant profit. The item was an original Kenner Star Wars toy prototype, a rare find even by collector standards. Prototypes of popular toys, especially those from the first wave of Star Wars merchandise, released in the late 1970s, can fetch tens of thousands of dollars at auction due to their scarcity and historical significance. Upon seeing the item, Rick immediately recognized its potential value but remained cautious. As always, he approached the negotiation with his signature blend of skepticism and shrewdness, attempting to determine whether the seller truly knew what they had or if they were simply trying to capitalize on the Star Wars brand's enduring popularity. Rick's initial offer was significantly lower than what the seller expected, prompting a back-and-forth discussion about provenance, rarity, and market demand. While Rick was clearly interested in acquiring the piece, he wasn't willing to pay top dollar without being absolutely certain of its authenticity and uniqueness. Eventually, after some deliberation and consultation with experts outside the shop, Rick agreed to close the deal, but not before making it clear that he believed the item was overvalued. This decision would later become the source of tension between him and Chumley. Chumley calls Rick cheap. As soon as the customer left the shop with a check in hand, Chumley expressed his frustration with how the deal went down. Known for his candid, if sometimes impulsive comments, Chumley didn't hold back. "You know, Rick, sometimes you're just plain cheap," he said, shaking his head as he leaned against the counter. Rick, never one to back down from a confrontation, responded with a smirk. "I'm not cheap, Chumley. I'm smart. There's a difference." The exchange quickly escalated into a full-blown debate about business ethics, negotiation tactics, and the role each person plays in the shop's success. Chumley argued that Rick could have offered more money, potentially securing a better reputation among collectors and increasing the shop's appeal to high-end sellers. "People want to feel respected," Chumley insisted. "If we lowball them, they'll just go somewhere else next time." Rick countered by emphasizing the importance of protecting the shop's bottom line. "This isn't charity," he replied. "We're here to make money, not give it away." Despite the heated tone, the conversation never devolved into outright hostility. Instead, it reflected the ongoing dynamic between the two men, one built on years of working together, clashing over decisions, and ultimately respecting each other's roles within the business. To longtime viewers of Pawn Stars, this kind of verbal sparring is nothing new. The show thrives on these moments of tension, which add drama while also showcasing the personalities behind the transactions. However, this particular exchange stood out because it touched on a deeper issue within the pawn industry. How much risk is acceptable when dealing with high-value items? Rick has long been portrayed as the pragmatic businessman who values caution over sentimentality. His approach has served the shop well over the years, helping it weather economic downturns and maintain profitability in a volatile market. But Chumley, who has grown more confident in his role over the years, seems increasingly willing to challenge Rick's authority, especially when he believes a better deal could have been struck. Some fans speculate that Chumley's growing assertiveness may be a sign of shifting power dynamics within the shop. With Corey, Big Hoss, largely stepping back from day-to-day operations, there's room for Chumley to take on more responsibility and perhaps even begin asserting his own vision for how things should be run. Beyond the immediate conflict between Rick and Chumley, the Star Wars deal itself highlights the evolving nature of collectibles markets. Over the past decade, vintage toys, particularly those tied to iconic franchises like Star Wars, have seen a massive surge in value. What was once considered niche memorabilia is now big business, with rare items routinely selling for six figures at auction. For pawn shops like the one featured on Pawn Stars, this means that every Star Wars item brought through the door carries the potential for either a huge payday or a costly mistake. Authenticity is paramount, and even small details like packaging condition, production markings, or missing accessories can dramatically affect an item's worth. In this case, Rick's hesitation was understandable. The seller had claimed the item was a prototype, but without verifiable documentation or a known history, there was always the risk that it was simply a modified version of a mass-produced toy. Paying too much for something that couldn't be authenticated could result in a financial loss if the shop was unable to resell it at a premium. At the same time, Chumley's point about reputation holds weight. In the competitive world of collectibles, word travels fast. If sellers believe they won't get fair offers at the gold and silver pawn shop, they might choose to take their items elsewhere, potentially costing the shop future opportunities. Following the airing of the episode, social media platforms lit up with reactions from fans of the show. Some sided with Rick, praising his business acumen and cautious approach. "Rick knows what he's doing," wrote one commenter on Reddit. "He's not trying to lose money, just to look good on TV." Others sympathized with Chumley, arguing that the shop needed to adapt to changing times. "Chumley's right," another fan tweeted. "If you lowball people all the time, they stop coming in. Rick needs to loosen up a little." Interestingly, many viewers noted that the argument seemed less personal and more philosophical, an honest disagreement about business philosophy rather than a petty feud. One particularly insightful comment summed it up perfectly. "It's not really about being cheap or generous, it's about knowing your market." Rick thinks he got a good deal. Chumley thinks he missed an opportunity. Time will tell who was right. The bigger picture, Rick versus Chumley. While the Star Wars incident was just one moment in the larger narrative of Pawn Stars, it encapsulates the ongoing evolution of Rick and Chumley's relationship. When Chumley first joined the shop, he was often portrayed as comic relief, a goofy sidekick who stumbled through appraisals. and rarely contributed meaningful insight. Over time, however, he's matured both personally and professionally. Today, Chumlee is more involved in negotiations and even hosts segments of the show independently. He's developed a deeper understanding of the collectibles market and has begun cultivating his own relationships with regular customers and fellow enthusiasts. This growth naturally leads to friction with Rick, who has traditionally held the final say in most business decisions. As Chumlee gains confidence, he's more willing to voice dissent, even if it means calling out his boss on national television. From a storytelling perspective, this dynamic adds depth to the show. It moves beyond simple transactional entertainment and explores themes of mentorship, generational differences, and the challenges of adapting to change. Many fans are now speculating whether Chumlee's bold move marks the beginning of a new era at the pawn shop. Could he eventually become more than just an employee? Might he one day co-own the business or even strike out on his own? Chumlee himself has hinted at aspirations beyond the shop. In interviews, he's spoken about wanting to build his own brand and expand into different areas of the collectibles market. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: he's no longer content to play second fiddle. Rick, for his part, seems aware of Chumlee's ambitions. While he still maintains control, there are signs that he trusts Chumlee more than ever before. In recent episodes, he's allowed him to lead negotiations and make independent decisions, something he rarely did in earlier seasons. This gradual shift suggests that Rick sees Chumlee not just as an employee, but as a potential successor or partner. Whether they continue to work together harmoniously or eventually part ways will likely depend on how well they can balance their differing philosophies moving forward. Ultimately, the Star Wars deal serves as a microcosm of the broader themes explored throughout Pawn Stars. It illustrates the delicate balance between risk and reward, the importance of expertise and intuition, and the complexities of human relationships in a high-pressure environment. It also reinforces a key message of the show: knowledge is power. Whether it's identifying a counterfeit coin, authenticating a vintage guitar, or evaluating a rare action figure, the ability to separate fact from fiction is what separates successful dealers from the rest. In this case, Rick relied on his experience and caution to avoid what he perceived as a risky purchase. Chumlee, on the other hand, saw an opportunity to build goodwill and secure a valuable asset for the shop. Both perspectives have merit, and neither is inherently wrong. What matters most is how the team learns from these experiences and applies those lessons to future deals. So is Rick Harrison truly cheap, or is he simply playing the long game? The answer likely lies somewhere in between. Rick's reputation as a savvy negotiator is well-earned, and his approach has undoubtedly contributed to the shop's longevity. At the same time, Chumlee's willingness to challenge the status quo reflects a necessary evolution, not just for the business, but for the show itself. As Pawn Stars continues to evolve, so too must its characters. The tension between Rick and Chumlee may seem like conflict to outsiders, but to fans, it's a sign of growth. It proves that the show is still capable of surprise, still willing to explore new dynamics, and still relevant in a rapidly changing entertainment landscape. Whether the Star Wars deal ends up being a brilliant bargain or a missed opportunity remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the story of Rick Harrison and Chumlee's rivalry, however